Hey guys, Steve here. How you doing this morning? Here a little early. Apologize, I didn't do the update last night. I ended up going to bed a little early. Um, and I think it's actually pretty good that I ended up waiting here. We got a lot of new information that came out overnight, and you know, uh, so we do have some good new data to work with here, which is always very good. So Irma is a just a catastrophic here, really a catastrophic Category 5 hurricane. She went right over the over Antigua here, and she is now really she's actually moving pretty much west-northwest here, eyeing the British Virgin Islands. She is going to significantly impact the the U.S. Virgin Islands, but she is going to pretty much directly hit the British Virgin Islands, and she is going to miss directly northeast Puerto Rico and the north shore of Puerto Rico, but they're still going to feel hurricane force winds there, as her hurricane force winds extend out quite far, actually, starting to get perhaps about 100 miles large, and her tropical storm force winds are just enormous, absolutely enormous here. Just an incredible storm, one of the strongest in Atlantic history here. It's just an incredible weather situation setting up. This is the wider view. Notice this is notice how you have this line that comes through. This is daylight. This satellite imagery here is not yet caught up here. It's a little bit behind, but nevertheless, here's Irma. We actually have 3 tropical systems in the Atlantic right now. We have this one here, we have Irma, of course, and then we have this one over here. So this one here is Jose, and then we have Katia. So we have 3 of them. Now, Katia poses a very minimal risk, very weak tropical storm. I am not too concerned about Katia at this point. Moving very slow, and she is not moving north or northeast. She is basically moving towards Mexico, which is very good because these folks in here don't need any more rain than what they've already got. So that is very good news. Not necessarily good news for Mexico, since this is moving so slow. You know, they could perhaps get a good amount of rain down there, but I don't believe it is going to be as devastating as the types of flooding that we saw out in Texas. But they could get some flooding certainly out there with Katia. Jose is kind of interesting. You know, I think he's going to end up taking a track something like this, and then he's, I think, going to meander around a little bit, may end up coming back down here, and depending on where Irma goes later on in the week, or beginning of next week, actually, I think that will dictate where Jose ultimately ends up going. My inkling at this point, if I were to have to give a very early estimate here, and it's very early on, I would say more than likely Katia will probably end up pulling Jose in and take him out to sea. I don't think, or not Katia, Irma, I mean, the remnants there, because it looks like what'll end up happening is she ends up getting sucked up into a trough here in the East Coast, or actually becomes an upper level low as it moves into the Northeast, and then it ends up moving out into the Gulf of Maine and, you know, the Northern Atlantic, and by that time Jose will be able to get sucked into that trough there. So that would be good news, hopefully Hopefully that stays that way, but of course we'll keep our eyes out there on Jose. But nevertheless, he's a strong tropical storm. He's got sustained winds, I believe, of 60 miles an hour at this point. So much more formidable than Katia. 40 miles an hour for Katia. All right. Let me show you the newest data as of 5 o'clock here for Irma. Category 5, 185-mile maximum sustained winds. Central pressure, 914 millibars. West-northwest, 16 miles an hour. So she is not moving due west, nor is she moving southwest. So this is not going to go down in here. So she's not moving down like this, nor is she moving directly west here. So she is not going to go right over the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico. She is moving west-northwest like this, which is not good news, because she will probably stay a Category 5 storm over the course of the next couple of days here. She's not really going to weaken at all, which will pose a significant risk for the Turks and Caicos. So definitely not a good situation there. This is the National Hurricane Center forecast. So this is official. This is not a fake forecast. This is official. I want to show you here the wind field. It has gotten pretty expansive over the course of the past couple of days. Originally, it was very small. It was very localized, the hurricane winds. It was maybe like a 20-mile radius of basically where those hurricane winds were. Now, they're all getting close to 100 miles, and those tropical storm force winds are really fanning out. And if things are correct here, by the time she gets out into areas between Cuba and the Bahamas, she is going to have a humongous wind field, I think, or at least according to what a lot of the models are suggesting at this point. Northern shore of the Dominican Republic, there is a hurricane warning. All of Puerto Rico is under a hurricane warning. There are tropical storm warnings out for southern Dominican Republic, South Shore, and then Haiti, northern Haiti, is under a hurricane watch. Now, here is the million-dollar question. Is Irma going to go into Cuba like this? Or is she going to stay over open water? If she stays over open water, there is a potential that she will go sub 900 millibars in pressure, which would mean she would end up ultimately becoming the strongest hurricane in Atlantic history. I want to caution you, there is a very real possibility that she ends up tracking into Cuba. If she ends up tracking into Cuba, she will weaken, but not enough to where, if she curves back something like this, where she will not strengthen again. Because I want to say something here. The waters from the south coast here of Florida all the way around like this are intense. The waters are nearing 90 degrees, which is very prime for hurricanes. These types of waters will really intensify them very rapidly. So this is the reason why the situation down in South Florida is just terrible. It doesn't matter which solution ends up verifying at this point. No matter what, the furthest east track goes something like this. The furthest west track for Florida goes something like this. That's basically about 100 miles. So either, anywhere from Miami to Fort Myers, that's where Irma will end up impacting Florida. Will she make a landfall there? I'm not sure. She is probably going to end up hugging the coast somewhere, or she'll make a direct landfall into Florida, what the National Hurricane Center is suggesting. But somewhere in this very small cone, it's very small now, is what's going to end up happening here. And this is concerning. This is going to be devastating for South Florida, no doubt, no doubt. And if she goes up the central coast of Florida, this is going to be bad. This is going to be bad for all of Florida, not just the South Coast or just the East Coast or the West Coast. It'll be all of Florida because, again, that wind field is going to be very massive. Not like that. Let me redo that. Her wind field will be something like this, okay? Part of her winds will be in the Gulf of Mexico. Part of her winds will be in the Atlantic. If it takes a track like the National Hurricane Center is suggesting, may not. But if that ends up happening, we will see her sustain hurricane status right through the spine of Florida, basically taking her right over Orlando, Florida. That's basically what would end up happening. And everyone from Miami up to pretty much Jacksonville would end up seeing, Category 2, Category 1, and depending on the location here. Remember, it's this eastern quadrant here where the strongest winds are. That would be where we would be looking at the, if she's like a Category 3 at this point, that's where we would be seeing those Category 3 or Category 2 winds. Nasty. Absolutely a nasty situation happening. These are the model track or model intensity guidance. Now, I definitely caution here because up to this point, Irma has been stronger than all of the models. Just a couple of days ago, all of the models were suggesting her staying within a strong Category 3 or at most a moderate Category 4 or maybe strong Category 4. There was a few models saying she would become a strong Category 4. None of them were suggesting Category 5 strength. None of them. The only model that was showing that was the GFS model, which is pretty incredible at this point in time. Now notice where it is. They're all scented Category 5 over at least the next few days. I do caution that even though a lot of these models are taking her down into Category 4 status, I would definitely caution that, okay? Because of just the conditions out in the Gulf, or excuse me, out in the Caribbean. It is going to be very hard for her to weaken unless she makes landfall into Cuba. That is really the only way I see her weakening. And unfortunately, there are not too many models taking her into Cuba, which is just not good. It really isn't. Now, I want to show you, we're going to compare these to the intensity here. So this is the short-range hurricane models. Now, there is sort of a windshield wiper effect going on with these models. There are some models yesterday that were taking her along the west coast, or some of them even going pretty far out. Maybe, going over into the panhandle of Florida. Now today, look at where most of them are. They're coming into South Carolina. I don't think these solutions will verify. Perhaps they could. The very furthest north I see this making landfall is Wilmington, North Carolina. That is the furthest north I see this, but these are really the only ones suggesting that at this point. The window is certainly closing. I think it's already closed for the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast. I really honestly believe that there is almost, I would say there's almost no chance that this will make landfall in the Northeast. I really strongly believe that. at this particular point in time. Now, so with that being eliminated there, I want to sort of show you intensity versus track. So notice most of the models are keeping her right in here. Now there's a couple of models here that keep her as a Category 5 hurricane. My cone right now would be something like this. Okay, something like that, going to perhaps as far west as here. This is my cone right now. Very small cone. This is like, what is it? Like 120 miles, I think, from Tampa to Daytona Beach or something. That's like I-4 there. I-4, I think it's like maybe 120 miles long there from I-75 to I-95 there. But nevertheless, very small. Very, very small. You're not looking at a very wide cone here. My track here is a little bit east of the National Hurricane Center's track. Okay, my personal track would be, if I were to sort of make my center track, it would, whoops, that's a little too far north. My track would be something like this. This is only, I think this is like 40 miles, the difference, okay? Either way, doesn't matter if it's here or here, Miami is going to get just horrific situation down there. Doesn't matter if this happens or this happens. Now, so Mayan is a little bit further to the east, and I want to show you something here. You see these two models up in here? Look at where they're taking her. So you have UNXI, or UKXI, and EGRI, I think. Yeah, EGRI and UKXI. These two models keep her as a Category 5 hurricane. And this basically almost follows where I am believing where the storm takes her. Now, again, this could seriously change over the next, 3 days. But this window is really starting to close down. And notice all of these short-range models, there is really none that are taking her into Cuba at this point. And this is very concerning because, they are taking her into this 89-degree water. And that is very, very bad. Very, very bad. So this situation is getting nasty, to say the least. Now, these models are taking her right into South Carolina here. And if this were to happen, we would see the center of the storm here still as, I think, like a Category 2 storm. Category 2 or Category 3, maybe. And if that were to happen, the winds would be huge. The wind field would be expanding something like this. It would be absolutely enormous. And folks, and I believe, Jet, you live in this part of North Carolina, you'd be getting some hurricane force winds if this were to verify, if these models were to verify. So you really need to monitor very closely future model runs here. But nevertheless, anybody from here on over into here need to really be cautious and monitor things. I would still be a little cautious if you live into this part of North Carolina. I think this part here is Jacksonville, I believe. There's a Jacksonville, North Carolina. I think that's somewhere up in here, all the way down to Wilmington, North Carolina. That's the general area where, if it is going to be in North Carolina, this will be where it is. But there's not a lot of information to support that at this point. Now, GFS, okay, I want to show you here, And this is the reason why I am taking slight more credence into the GFS than the euro. Here is where it is pretty much right now, or where she was earlier on. This is the euro. Notice, so her pressure right now is 916 millibars. If we go back to the National Hurricane Center here, actually, excuse me, 914. So the GFS is off by 1 millibar. 1 millibar. Look at what the euro is showing. 961. Not even close. We're talking about 50 millibars off. And that's a problem because this is not using current data. This is using sort of various satellite data that is, somewhat accurate, but not completely accurate. And even all of the euro ensembles are not even accounting for the current data that is, happening, okay? To where the GFS is using all of the reconnaissance data that the National Hurricane Center is finding. That is all being inputted into the GFS model, which is sort of giving the GFS a little bit of an edge in terms of the storm here. So that is something, that is part of the reason why I'm slightly leaning more towards a GFS solution than a euro solution here. Perhaps you've seen the Canadian model. I'm not wasting my time on that. Yesterday, it had the storm taking a track, something like this. Now, it is the other extreme. It takes a track, something like this, right up into New England, okay? This change here is something like at least 500 miles. I'm not wasting my time with the Canadian. We don't have time to be playing games like that, okay? We're getting down to it. I have no time to be doing that, okay? Now, so looking at the GFS, basically it does have it weakening a little bit today, but it's still a Category 5 storm, still a very powerful Category 5 storm. Now, remember I said there's an area from the northern Cuba coast over to the Bahamas where if Hurricane Irma doesn't make landfall, she is going to rapidly intensify. Okay, so notice here, she's a 935, 929, so she's starting to get into those waters now. 930, now she's dropping down to 926, 919 now. She's getting into those 89-degree waters. 906 now, 903, 897, 898, 898. Now, let's look at the euro for a second. Okay, so let's just say, the euro verifies. Still, these waters in there are going to rapidly intensify Irma. Because notice, here she's 952, she now drops down to 932. Okay, so if she goes right in between here, she is going to strengthen significantly. And she will go down. The euro is even suggesting close to, and this is based upon the satellite data, that she gets close to Category 5 strength. Perhaps even at least Category 4, if not Category 5. So, the GFS and euro are in agreement that this area in here, this very small area, right in between the Bahamas and northern coast of Cuba, is basically a fuel zone. You can think about it as like gasoline, putting gasoline on fire. It's going to rapidly intensify her significantly, and that is something that both the euro and the GFS agree upon. The difference is the strength that they have at the beginning. Okay, that is where the difference is, and that is the reason why the GFS shows a more worse solution. And the problem is current data is more closer to the GFS than the euro. So you have to sort of still think about that for a second. So here is the GFS, okay? So there she goes. I mean, she's going through the Turks and Caicos. This is, within the next by Friday. And then here she goes. And again, there's that area, okay? There's that area right in between the Bahamas, which is out in here, and then here's the northern coast of Cuba, where she just bombs out. She just rapidly intensifies, okay? Notice while she's going through the Turks and Caicos, still a nasty Category 5 storm, 925 millibars. But now, once she gets in here, 899. Look at this, and there it goes, right close to the eastern Florida coast. And that's basically what the GFS is suggesting at this point. Here are the ensembles, by the way. This is GFS ensemble. By the way, for those of you who don't know, ensembles is one model, and they run it multiple times. And for the GFS, it's run 20 times. The Euro, it's run 50 times. Okay. Now, with the GFS, I want to show you here, the cluster of models, I would say about 70% of the models are in between here, okay? And there is almost none that suggest she is going to hit Cuba. There's only like a few, okay? There's also a few that say that she's going to go out to sea like this, and there's even, look at this one little lone one that brings her right up into New Jersey. That's really not going to happen at this point. But notice most of the models are right in here, and the reason why we're going to focus more on this here is because that's where all the short range guidance is taking her, anywhere between west coast of Florida right on up into South Carolina like this. Now, Euro ensembles, it's a little harder to see here, but most of them also do the same exact thing. They take her something up from here, right on into here, something like that. That's really, and there's a few also that go along the west coast of Florida. I would say there's about 10, maybe 15 out of the 50 that take her over Cuba. So there's some, but there's not a whole heck of a lot that take her over Cuba, which again is the reason why I'm a little bit concerned about the strength of Irma later on in time. In any case, we are going to keep monitoring this, but nevertheless, if you live from South Carolina on down through the eastern coast and all of southern Florida at this point, on up through here, even the west coast of Florida, anywhere in this area, conditions are going to be pretty nasty here over the course of the next, or by the time Saturday and Sunday roll around, things are going to deteriorate quickly. And I would say a potentially dangerous scenario is setting up from anywhere from Fort Myers over to Miami. So if you know anybody living in that area, or you yourself live in that area, get ready. Get ready. This is going to be very catastrophic. I hate to say it, but it's going to be catastrophic in that area. So just get ready. Make sure you've prepared already. If you haven't done anything yet, today, absolutely today and tomorrow, because if you wait until Friday, it is just going to be, everything will be out. Everybody, and if you are planning on leaving, everybody will have left by then, or is on the way of leaving. The interstates, you'll be looking at 75, 95, even 4 and 10 will all be gridlock, particularly 75 and 95. They will be just gridlock from Miami points north. So if you are planning on leaving Florida now, today or tomorrow is when you leave Florida. Because if not, don't plan on getting too far over the course of time here, because everybody will be leaving at the same time. So watch out. Make sure you stay tuned. I will give an update hopefully sometime later on tonight. But that's my most recent update here. Just a nasty situation setting up with Irma. This will probably be the very first storm since Hurricane Wilma to, at the very least, come close of making landfall in Florida, if not making landfall. This is just going to be nasty. So get ready, and I'll give you an update later on tonight. So make sure you stay tuned and take care.